now into the webinar, so take it away, guys. Brett?
Yeah, sure. So, I will try and attempt to do my camera as well at the same time, Alistair, but
no problem.
Putting in context of what we're doing here around SSL and TLS, and moving on to the core element of it is Q-Day and quantum computing. Why does it matter? Why does it matter, Alistair?
So directly, it matters because there is a cliff edge coming. I'm not sowing fear, uncertainty, and doubt for the sake of the audience, but there is a requirement to be resilient and to ensure that the correct assessments are carried out right now. And in fact, many who haven't are kind of behind the curve on it. But the good news is there is a tried and tested method now with tools and with expertise sitting behind it to deliver that.
Yeah, okay. So in context, what does the SSL and TLS actually do? Why is it there?
So SSL certificates and TLS as the transport layer security, in terms of functionality, without going into the technical detail, are providing a secure method of transmission, encrypting both ends and encrypting the content being passed from one point to the other. These are generally delivered via certificate authorities, including some of the free ones, and they're deployed via tech admins, either manually using tools or via CA automation tools.
Okay, and it's a layer of protection, effectively, right? Is that my understanding?
It's a layer of data protection, so it's encrypting the flow of data.
Gotcha.
From point to point.
Okay. Super. Thank you for clarifying that. Tash, we can move on to the next slide. So, quantum threats. So we're hear about Q-Day quite a lot recently. Some people may know about it, some people may not. If people don't know about quantum computing, at a high level, how would you describe what quantum computing is?
It's a significant advancement in processing power.
Right.
So it's allowing us to do things faster, better, and more accurately in some respects. And is sitting alongside AI in terms of the ability for organizations to accelerate time to business, time to money, time to transactions. So it's about a transformation entirely of how data is processed.
So just for my own knowledge, in comparison to where we are at the moment with compute servers that we've traditionally seen, how much of a significant change is it between the way we're doing things now to the way that things will move in the future with quantum? Is it vastly different?
It's vastly different. In context of speed, it's a bit like warp factor 1 moving to warp factor 10, if that exists. So it's a massive multiple in overall terms. There are lots of real world examples, none of them thoroughly tested yet. But in terms of what this means as far as PQC is concerned, and Q-Day, it's about as simple as we have at best 5 years left, more like 2, before the processing power that quantum represents threatens the cryptography landscape.
So that's interesting. So we're predicting not only a source for good, but potential source for bad in terms of the quantum computing threat.
Yeah, the threats are real. The obvious one at the moment is how hackers and bad actors could potentially leverage quantum alongside AI to get ahead of government, business, and the world as a whole when it comes to data protection and accessing systems and services.
That's quite a significant risk then. Okay. Tash, could you move on to the next one, please? All right. With that in mind then, why do we need to think about SSL and TLS? Why must it change?
Simply put, the current standards, which are evolving and have been always through the CA Browser Forum and CA Security Council, who determine the standards. NIST now have a part to play in that in terms of QD. These organizations have recognized the issue very early, as they do, typically. And one of the key things to recognize here is the fact that through the issuance of, or the advent of, free certificates, because historically in the commercial CA space there was much more regulation, strength of administration, vetting, verification processes, all these things that free certs kind of dismantled in a way. And we're now, I think, still around the 60% by volume level. All of these things are important, and all of these things are more important to enterprise organizations and government, education, and so on, because they are more inclined to respect standards than small business and SMEs as a whole. So I think the bottom line, the answer to the question is, the key is to have a checklist, be resilient in the approach, and be prepared. Once everyone fully understands what's at stake, and the strapline there, why these two events are one problem, relates also to the deprecation of certificate lifecycle timelines, which we can come on to as well.
So just going back on the free certs and paid certs, there's going to be a significant investment in time for people who are working on creating certificates, I assume, more regular than previously, because they will need to change more frequently. Is that right?
That's right. Some say by a factor of 8, others 12, depending on how certs are managed. So let's say there's for talking's sake, a 10 times requirement to be diligent on certificates lifecycle management. The reason for that is we dropped from 308 days to 47 days over a 3-year period, up to 29 now. So by March 29, we're talking about a 47-day life cycle, which interestingly fits with the free model, but it's not manageable with free certs.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Tash, could you move on to the next one? Post-quantum cryptography. What does that mean? Alistair, what's your views on post-quantum cryptography?
This is essentially the ability for agile cryptography to keep up with the change of state. So the introduction of quantum compute or computing technology and its impact on the ability for these key certificates and so on to remain secure or to hold value And what I mean by that is their ability not to be cracked.
Yeah. Okay. So Natasha just put up a timeline here. I'm just looking over it. So this has been looked at from what 2024 and is maturing, would you say, into 2026? Look at these different orders from NCSC, PDQ, creating roadmaps. As you said earlier, CNSA, National Security Systems. I suspect there's going to be a lot more than just this.
Yeah, there are
So
several other standards.
Yeah. Okay. So if this is the initial baseline for, as we're putting here, FBI, NIST, and CISA. Yeah.
Yeah, the next one to take cognizance of is CAF, which is part of the Cyber Resilience Bill set up in the UK, which identifies Q-Day or PQC and the 47-day cert as certainly one of the biggest threats to data protection or data integrity full time. So the reality of that is it's the number one priority for organizations who manage large cryptographic estates to get their house in order early, to head the whole cliff edge thing off at the pass.
Show my age here. I remember when SSL first came about, and there would only be a couple of certificates within an organization. So has that significantly increased in an organization, a mid-sized business, a government business? Is it in the hundreds, or how does it work?
There are massive numbers now at every level. So not just commercial CA certs, free certs, every kind of private CA cert, every kind of PKI flavor, client auth, etc., across organizations. To give you real world examples, if we think big banks here, they could have hundreds of thousands of certificates living on their infrastructure, representing bigger threats now. Include we'd have to include machines and AI in that.
Really?
So the growth could be seriously exponential. If you look at two of the bigger certificate lifecycle management discovery tool sets like Verify and AppViewX over the last year, they've completely shifted their whole proposition and go to market from historical cert discovery and cert automation through to machines and AI. That's their core now, because they've recognized the threat early, they've raised the funds to do so. Both, in fact, they're one of our advisory board members sits on the AppViewX board, and they made a step change this year to do that. So the threat is probably bigger in that realm of machines and AI.
So not only the frequency is going to change then, but the proliferation of the certs is also going to be increasing as well, based on everybody wants their own agentic AI instance.
That's right.
Okay.
As AI is adopted more widely across organizations for everything, so on agentic orchestration, on other forms, business analytics, whatever it might be, there is a massive proliferation of certificate instances as a result of that.
That's incredible. That looks like a big problem, hard to manage. Okay. Tash, can you move on to the
increasingly.
next one? Yeah. So here we go. This is timelines. Yeah, talk us through the timelines again. So
so we started the first step of deprecation in March, down to 200 days. The next one in 27 down to 100, and then ultimately 29 down to 47 days. Now, in terms of what that means for most organizations who have an eye on certs, and that could be anything from post-it notes, digest, Excel documents, CSVs, whatever, as has been historically, through to actually adopting tools now properly for that reason, because of the step change. So there are tools out there. I mean, we're just at the end of a build actually on integrating quite a few of them into one platform. So things like Redshift, which is they have a free Cert Lite product, which you can upgrade to enterprise through our system. Those are going to become key in terms of service operation. So some ITSMs cover it, some don't. The key is to have specialist tools in place to ensure that nothing is missed, discovered, tracked, managed.
I've got a question about this. So looking at these timelines, so March has just passed, and it's 200 days. Is it built in to the certs that they will expire, or is this a guideline from the government on best practice?
Well, these certs will expire.
Right.
The important thing, and one of the key messages for today, is using subscription models rather than pay per cert, right? So that works even better if you've been using Let's Encrypt, because they have short life cycles. So if you're used to managing that kind of high demand situation where the cert's expiring every 40 odd days, or 90 days, sorry, the reality is you're probably better placed in a sense. I wouldn't recommend the use of free certs for many reasons, but particularly in terms of the integral security and the use of tools that can be connected to things elsewhere. But if the key to at least getting to the kind of first level of visibility and transparency using a tool set is important. Highly recommended.
Okay. So they will just stop. Right. I got it. Yeah.
Well, the subscription model is different. The subscription model includes automation, so renewal automation. So if the Acme agent's deployed on the user's estate, it can facilitate auto renewal. So when you buy a year subscription, you can renew 8 times when it gets to 47 automatically, without manual intervention, without generating a CSR, without going through what I would describe as the nightmare scenario of having to manage 8 with CSRs.
So it's discover and subscribe.
Yeah, but I think the best way of describing it really is discover, automate, and maintain. There are so many different takes on it, but the reality is what you're trying to do is find everything, track everything.
Right.
When it comes to renewal, try and automate as much of it as possible, but always have that tracking and visibility in place. The monitoring bit is important. I remember going back to VeriSign days, and others, Entrust and so on, where we had to come up with a funky title or acronym for just what I described, which we ended up settling on AIM for some reason, which was about automation and monitoring. So, this stuff's been around for a long time. The automation capability has been around for at least 15 years. It just hasn't been adopted to the levels I would have thought it would have been already. I mean, we were running government surveys for the Cabinet Office for 4 years on the deprecation of SSL in the UK, i.e. the numbers of certs were actually declining through a period where they should have been increasing. And that's because there wasn't really the level of management in place. Services were being switched off, but very few were actually being decommissioned in the right way. And that's another feature of having tools in place, the ability to find keys that have been residual keys that have been left behind that you need to remove, because they can still cause dependency issues. And we've seen some big outages as a result of that over the last 10 years, especially in the financial services space.
Wow, that's interesting. So you're ahead of your time, and people, I assume then, organizations saw the decline in certificates, so they didn't think the workload or the cost of the workload in terms of time invested outweighs the cost of the automation, i.e. we're not spending half as much time on this than we think we are. But looking at this infographic here that Natasha has put up, 4,000 hours to 48,000 hours. What's this from Gartner? But looks of it, maybe.
It is,
yeah, that's huge difference, isn't it? So there's the adoption, proliferation, and the lack of management. Okay.
And the need for, and the overhead. I mean, a lot of the complacency around cert management has actually come down to the advent of free certs, because it kind of reduced the importance almost. Well, they're free now, so it doesn't really matter. We can have as many as we like. But the problem with that is you then increase the management overhead and also the risk dramatically.
Okay, Natasha, next one, please. Let's talk a bit about migration strategy and what to expect. So we talked a lot about the where we are currently. What should people be thinking about doing, and what's to be expected of that landscape?
Well, I mean, in really simple terms, there are a number of checklists that you'll see from professional services organisations, the CEAs, the standards bodies, etc. But the key really is to risk assess initially and assess and prioritise. So you need to look at some form of crypto audit and risk assessment. There are specific methodologies for that, including ISOs in the financial services space for PKI, the new NIST standard for PQC and so on, that really do help. They provide the business level detail or C-suite level detail that you need to report on. They also provide the tech admin level processes and guidelines and protocols and so on that sort of help frame it up and standardize around people, process and procedures, which is important. So preparedness through audit is definitely the first step.
Okay. Tash, can we move on the second thing? And another one, please. So we've seen this one. We've talked about this. So here we go. So let's talk about what keeps the CISO awake. We talked about audit and understanding. That's one headache, isn't it? Really, is working to the guidelines that's out there.
Yeah, assessment and prioritization would be the next two. So making sure that you have a proper sort of no gaps approach to where we get to eventually, which is crypto agility implementation. But assess and prioritize, and then get into a planning phase around migration, using this 2030 deprecation of vulnerable algorithms, to quote our own internal checklist, and then communicate it with realistic timelines. So incorporating leadership and board level engagement to ensure organizational alignment. Even things like cyber risk insurance.
Right.
So that's another kind of battlefield that exists, believe it or not, where they are updating direct underwriting authority to accommodate QD,
Really?
and therefore, and therefore they are looking at this whole phenomenon as a premium uplift opportunity because of the complexity of it, or the perceived complexity. It's okay working to baseline standards like Cyber Essentials, but they're not really achieving or doing anything. They're more for small business and not really tuned to enterprise level challenges. So the introduction of CAF this year, and the new cyber resilience standards address that to a certain extent.
So do you think, though, it sounds like it should be in Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus? Do you think that will appear at some point as how are you managing this? How are you keeping on top of these problems? Because it is a serious threat surface, isn't it?
Until the
exploitation.
Until the phenomenon, as I call it, is understood fully by the organisations that sit behind, so IASME, NCSE, and so on. I mean, we had Cyber UK last week. There wasn't a great deal of coverage on QD, which was interesting. But I think, it's I can't see it appearing quickly in Cyber Essentials. I mean, we wrote a Home Office report last year on new standards and trust marks and various other things.
Right.
That hasn't yet properly been adopted, but it takes time, and there are lots of considerations, probably too many competing standards, and it's also about training, let's not forget. So, the skills that are required to manage these two new challenges are really important, and it's really only the likes of GTIA that provide that kind of training capability, the granularity that's required. It's very difficult to find it elsewhere. The PKI forum is a good source for that kind of information, on training staff or around PQC, QD, and certificate management.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What it would be. No, that's fine. So the insurance firms are picking this up now as a possibility of the underwriting as a definite risk, but we're yet to see anything in CE or CE plus at the moment. But that potentially could follow at some point down the line because it just takes time.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
NIST is the one at the moment that's addressed it.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
For guidance purposes, use NIST for sure.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. So let's talk a bit about how Trustify can help.
Okay. So we've had cert management tools for a long time, our own and others, third-party products. We've deployed hundreds, if not thousands, of instances of these tool sets. we took a step back last year and said, okay, we know what's coming. Can we do something about it in terms of automation, crypto agility, QD, all that sort of stuff? And we have actually deployed the first cut. But importantly, I think the next cut's the one that addresses it, which will be in a few weeks' time.
Right.
So we can provide that professional services capability around preparedness, so the assessment, the plan, and now the tooling, right? So the ability to be able to discover, track, monitor everything, including decommissioning rogue or residual keys, right down to that level.
Is that a complex piece of work, a time-consuming piece of work to do?
For a long time it was, and for a long time organizations that provided those kind of services like Verify were charging like the proverbial wounded rhino. But now it's very cost effective. Actually, a lot of the tools are free, so it's really only about paying for the cert subscription. So that's the route I would recommend. Free tooling, possibly paying for some kind of upfront PS advice or advisory, and then using that free tooling to manage the estate properly and ensure that PQC and deprecated life cycles are captured by it. The free tooling. Don't get something that's stuck in the past.
But the paid is to have the education and assistance and advice for that skills transfer, making them people aware, creating a shortcut to learning how this should happen and how this should be maintained and understood.
100%. It's always seen as a bit of a mysterious realm, and there are lots of famous crazies that live and breathe it. So yeah, it's important to get the plan in place, and that plan needs to encompass what we've discussed. We can, after this, we'll provide a complete pack on straightforward recommendations and access to tools. The only cost on the tooling side is where you need to have very large enterprise coverage, and the tooling there can be expensive. But for example, we have a free version of the new tooling that covers up to 250 certs, which satisfies even the M and SME to a certain extent.
Right.
But where there are cert intensive environments, some of the more expensive tooling might be required.
Evidently, it's far more complex.
Yeah, I mean, they could be dealing with millions of certs potentially.
Right. Yeah, I got you. Okay, Tash.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So if you did want to know any more, please, you're welcome to contact us, and we can do a free certificate audit, and we can take it from there with you guys. Next, if we have any questions, please ask them in the chat now, or if you prefer, you can email us or contact us, and we can get back to you at a later date.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alistair, and well done, Brett.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my camera. No, my camera still doesn't work. I've been trying things frantically, and it's not happening. Sorry, Alistair. Apologies.
No, not at all.
You both did amazingly. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you ever so much, and thank you for everyone for joining us today.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Natasha. Bye for now.